So today we are diving into the world of Bracket 4, the high power section of EDH. Like, no hold limits, like the only restriction is the ban list. We're not quite CEDH, but we're gunning for it. Talion. Let's do this. Talion the Kindly Lord is 2 blue and a black for a legendary creature very noble that's a 3/4. They have the following text. Flying. As Talion Kindly Lord enters the battlefield, choose a number between 1 and 10. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value, power, or toughness equal to the chosen number, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. This is a great Dimir Commander. It's card draw in the command zone. What number are we picking when Talion enters the battlefield? We are picking the number 2. Most decks run anywhere between 15 to say 25% of their decks as 2-drops. It's the most popular slot in deck construction. So if we pass the turn with Talion up, there is around a 45 to 75% chance that somebody will play a 2-drop and you will get a card draw trigger from Talion. If we then start to factor in 1-drops power and toughness for creatures and 3-drops power and toughness, there is a lot of valuable creatures in the 1 mana and 3 mana slots that both have 2 power or 2 toughness. Therefore, further increasing the chance that we are going to get a hit off of Talion by choosing the number 2. So yeah, number 2. Always pick number 2. Doesn't matter if it's early game or late game. So how are we building Talion the Kindly Lord? Well, we're building her to win. We're not building her as a fairy themed tribal kindred type deck or any other type of niche type strategies. We are building purely to win. We are building bracket 4, so we are not worried about game changer slots. We are going to run a lot of interaction. We're going to run a lot of tutors, so we can pull out the bits of our deck that we need when we need them. So if we need some more ramp, we're going to go grab it with a tutor. We are playing at a high powered level. We're drawing cards, we're interacting with our opponents, expect to use the stack, and we are going to use some Stax Pieces to slow our opponents down. In total, we are running 1 Planeswalker, 15 creatures, 21 instants, 16 artifacts, 6 sorceries, and 5 enchantments, and we're still running 38 lands, including MDFCs. This is not quite a CEDH deck, but we are pushing towards that limit. So as always, I broke the deck down into sections, and we're going to start things off with card draw. Mystic Remora, Sensei's Divining Top, Fairy Mastermind, Ledger Shredder, Mnemonic Betrayal, Rhystic Study, Notion Thief, The One Ring, and Peer into the Abyss. This should be quite clear from the get-go, our game plan. We're going to get Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study, those type of effects on the battlefield to tax our opponents, to either slow them down by them paying more mana to cast a spell, or us drawing cards and getting further ahead. Fairy Mastermind, Ledger Shredder, if they start to multiple spell each turn, draw multiple cards, we are going to then get an advantage because of that. If they are drawing way too many cards, we're going to use Notion Thief, and we're going to stop them from drawing cards, and we're going to draw more cards. The One Ring, just a fantastic, I get protection, I'm just going to repeatedly draw more and more cards as the game goes on, so I know I'm going to be drawing towards a close. Peering to the Abyss, if you find yourself flooded with mana, you can cast this, and all of a sudden you've got half your deck in your hand. Lastly, we've got Mnemonic Betrayal and Sensei's Divining Top. Sensei's Divining Top is going to help us sift through the top few cards of our deck, let us draw what we want, keep things safe out of our hand on the top of our library. Yeah, and then Mnemonic Betrayal is we're going to exile all cards from opponents' graveyards, and then I may cast those cards and you may spend mana as though it was mana of any colour. So if we counter somebody else's key combo piece, we can then use this to steal it and cast it from their graveyard, giving us a form of card advantage. Aim the game, we're going to draw cards. Remember, there's only 9 card draw slots here. Talion is in the command zone and is card draw for us, so we don't need as much in the deck because we always have access to at least 1 piece of it. Regarding ramp, we have got Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, Mox Amber, Mox Opal, Dark Ritual, Mana Vault, Sol Ring, Springleaf Drum, Arcane Signet, and Talisman of Dominance. Obviously, all these 0 mana Moxen let us cast our commander as soon as possible. We can get them down on turn 1 or cast them at a safe point for no mana cost, allowing us not worrying about spending our mana to use that for other resources. Dark Ritual is a fantastic card in this deck because on turn 2, if we've got blue and a black available, we can spend our black, cast Dark Ritual for 3 mana, add 1 blue to it, and we can cast Talion on turn 2 pretty easily. Mana Vault is a fantastic card in this deck because it allows us to recast Talion if they have been killed, and therefore pay for the command attacks. Also, it allows us to cast that Peer into the Abyss a lot easier. Sol Ring is just a broken card and you should run it in most decks. Springleaf Drum allows us to use our creatures that we are playing to generate mana should we be shy on land drops. Arcane Signet and Talisman of Dominance, they basically just tap for whatever colour we need in our decks. Next up is clone effects. Right, we're running Mockingbird, Phantasmal Image, Volatile Stormdrake, technically a steal effect, but we're copying someone else's creature, and Phyrexian Metamorph. Yeah, the reason these cards are in the deck is because when somebody else plays something strong that's outside of our colour pie that we might not be running, we can then gain access to it. If we are playing against more bracket 3 decks, as this is a bracket 4 deck, we can copy their strong stuff that's a bracket 3 card and fight on a power level that's similar to them, excluding the fact that we're going to be countering the hell out of their spells, removing all their stuff, and ramping like a mother. This allows us to balance the deck out a little bit against lower powered decks, but also against stronger decks. So if you take this deck into a CEDH pod and they start playing out some really nasty combo pieces, we can then use these to try and keep level with those guys over there. So yeah, clone effects, pretty strong in this high powered format. Removal and interaction, this is our biggest section at 23 cards. You'll understand most of it just by the names of the spells, I imagine, but I'm just going to run through it quickly so you've got a bit of an idea. Pact Negation, Cut Down, Dispel, Flusterstorm, Pongify, Rapid Hybridization, Swan Song, Baleful Strix, Counterbalance, Counterspell, Mana Drain, Negate, Orcish Bowmasters, Spell Sky, Tail's End, Fierce Guardianship, Hydroelectric Specimen, Sink into Stupor, Tishana's Tidebinding, Deadly Relic, Felder Profane, Mindbreak Trap, and Force of Will. As we're playing higher power, we don't want to let as many things enter the battlefield, because when opponents enter the battlefield, that's when people start doing nefarious things to them and start using and abusing these permanents, as we do in Commander. So yeah, lots of counter spells to stop things entering. If things do enter, Deadly Relic, Felder Profane, Cut Down, Pugify, Rapidizations, those type of effects are going to remove those creatures from the battlefield. We've also got Tail's End, Tishana's Tidebinding to counter the triggered abilities that might go off. Spell Sky will protect us, as well as allow us to retarget spells and make it difficult for opponents to target their own things. We are also running Counterbalance, so this works really well with our Sensei's Divining Top. We can look at the top card, and if it has the same mana value as the spell that our opponent's trying to cast, we counter it. This is also a sneaky way of us looking at the top card and seeing what's coming up. We can also use our Thought Lash to remove it should we need to later on down the game, but I'll get to Thought Lash later. Baleful Strix is essentially a 2-mana cantrip, which is quite expensive, I understand, as a cantrip, but it's also a piece of removal. We're going to cast it, it replaces itself by drawing a card, and then because it has Death Touch, anything that attacks into us, we are essentially going to remove from the game if it's a big enough threat. Next, we have some Stax Pieces, and this is because we don't want people to run away with the game and get too far ahead that we can't catch up. So, Grafdigger's Cage, Vexing Bauble, Cursed Totem, Doughty Voidwalker, and Opposition Agent. Obviously, some of these are going to be obvious. Grafdigger stops people casting spells from graveyards or libraries. Vexing Bauble turns off free spells, so anybody trying to cast stuff for free stops that down. Cursed Totem stops all these creatures with activated abilities that allows people to go through loops and synergies. Doughty Voidwalker shuts down graveyards once again, and then you can then steal that permanent or steal one of those permanents in the graveyard, cast it for yourself. Opposition Agent, obviously we are running a lot of tutors ourselves, so other people are likely to be running tutors, and we want to slow them down and not go for that tutor that's going to get their game-winning piece, therefore allows us to control them during tutoring. But yeah, fantastic Stax Pieces. You could add way more Stax Pieces. There's a few more in the considering section, which will come up later. As for tutors in this deck, we are running Insatiable Avarice, Mystic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Model the Mixture. Yes, we're running this as a tutor due to its transmute effect. Wishclaw Talisman, Grim Tutor, and Praetor's Grasp. Yeah, just beware with a couple of these tutors, Insatiable, Mystic, and Vampiric. The card goes to the top of your library, so have some way of drawing a card if you need to get access to it, such as your Senseis or the instant speed ones you can do in response to like a Rhystic trigger or a Mystic Remora trigger or something like that. And then hope the person doesn't pay or might change if they can pay or not. Model the Mixture. This tutor is specifically for a card later, which we'll get to in the win section. Wishclaw Talisman is our break glass in case of emergency tutor, because we don't want to really give this to somebody else because they could tutor up something on their turn and go for the win. So we want to make sure we're using this in our winning game scenario. Praetor's Grasp is allow us to search an opponent's deck and pull out the best thing that they have or the best thing that we need at that point. So yeah, some fantastic tutors. Remember, the tutors don't just represent the best card in your deck, it represents the card that you need at that time. If you're missing card draw, fetch yourself some card draw. If you're missing ramp, go get yourself some ramp. If you have got a bunch of blue spells in hand but only one blue source on the table, do not be scared about getting a blue source from your mana base. Yeah, these cards are there to fix what you need at that point. Not a particular individual card, just whatever you need at that point. So how are we winning this game? Well, with one of these 5 cards, or a combination of these 5 cards really. Bloodchief Ascension and Mindcrank. Bloodchief Ascension triggers when an opponent loses 2 life, gets a counter on it. Boom, Talion does that nicely for us. Plus, it's 3 power, so it's easy to fly in and hit somebody for 3 as well, helping trigger Bloodchief Ascension. Once it gets 3 counters, when Mindcrank enters, we can make a nice little infinite loop. I'll put a link to the combo down in the description. Laboratory Maniac, Jace Builder Mystery. We're basically going to win the game if we try and draw a card with no cards in our library. Footlash allows us to remove all of those cards out of our library. Yeah, this is a alternative way of doing the Thassa's Demonic Consultation type thing. It costs a lot more mana, not as efficient. You could run Thassa's Demonic in this deck if you wanted to, but it does move you with that extra step closer to a CDH deck, I would say. Those cards are in the considering section if you want to take it to that level. But yeah, definitely viable, even though this mana base is not CDH viable. Anyway, let's do that now. Well, the lands. Nothing really major to write home about. We've got a couple of the Pain lands with City of Brass and Mana Confluence. We're running Maze of Ith to stop any crazy Eldrazi that might be coming our way. Otoboro as well is just a great land with a channel ability. We've only got 1 fetch in here just to keep it on colour theme, but you could run lots more as long as they fetch you an island or a swamp. Urza's Saga allows us to colour fix by getting some colour fix in. 9 times out of 10 I'm probably fetching a Soul Ring with it, unless I've got Peer into the Abyss in hand, in which case I might grab the Mana Vault to get the extra mana. And that's it. Just play your best Dimir lands that you have, and you'll be laughing. So onto some stats for the deck. As you can see, 51% of our deck is blue and 29% is black, which is covered by 71% of our lands producing blue and 42% of our lands producing black. 26% of the deck is colourless, but obviously we can use mana of any colour to pay for colourless stuff, and 8% of our lands tap for colourless lands, or colourless mana I should say. The average mana value of our deck is 2.08, further emphasising that magic 2 number I spoke to you about earlier. And yeah, the curve is nice and easy. After 4, there's nothing really. The 5 drop listed here is Force of Will, which is essentially a 0 drop. So the only thing bigger than a 4 drop is our lovely Peer into the Abyss, which means we're going to get half of our library into our hand and essentially go for the win from there. But yeah, we've got lots of instants and sorceries to cast on each of these curve points, so 0s, 1s, 2s, 3s and 4s, to make sure we can interact at all points in the game, because we are playing high-powered bracket 4 people. Woohoo! Some cards to consider for this deck. Tormod's Crypt, Weather Runestone. Exile target player's graveyard. Stop people casting spells from graveyards or libraries. Polywog Prodigy I did have in this deck, but removed it because I can't reliably get it to 3 power, which is where it's best. Thassa's Oracle is obviously in here because it's a great combo with Demonic Consultation. Shoulder of the Apocalypse, whenever opponent draws 2 cards they lose 2 life, which triggers our Bloodchief Ascension, which is one of our winning cards. But yeah, also gives you life gain when you draw cards as well. Talion lets you draw cards, lets you stabilize, stay in the game longer. Copy Artifact, Steal Enchantment, just ways of stealing people's enchantments, copying your artifacts, giving you more advantage depending on what's on the board. Dress Down, creatures lose all abilities, stop people from comboing up with creature effects. Propaganda, if you are in a meta where there's a lot of creatures and you're under attack a lot, this could be a good one for you. Demonic Consultation, as I mentioned, combos with Thassa's Oracle. Minor Misstep, if you're getting more competitive with those low-cost spells. Miscast, same there. Cabal Ritual, if you are more reliably filling your game graveyard, or your games are going longer and you're getting Threshold a lot easier, then this could be one definitely to include. Cyclonic Rift is another great include, but 7 mana, that is quite high. I do know obviously we have Peer into the Abyss in here, but I don't want too many high spells, so maybe you could throw this one in, and then just remember you will probably use it to bounce a single permanent. Disallow is another fantastic counter spell that counters a spell, activated ability or a triggered ability. This one just unfortunately costs 3, not 2, which is why it's not in the main deck itself, but if you need that extra effect, this could be a good one. Hagra Maulin destroys target creatures once they enter the battlefield. It is also a land if you need it to be a land. This is a way of utilizing those land slots just a little bit more, and ad nauseum. If you're in a pod or a group or a game store where people don't attack a lot because they don't want to attack, then ad nauseum could be good to you. Use that life. Your life is a resource. Everybody always says this. And Imperial Seal, just another tutor effect that you could run, but this is pricey, so yeah, I'm not buying it. Where do we take this deck from here? Well, that depends on how much you want to push into that bracket 5 section, this CEDH level. Now, if you are building this deck and then you are taking it home and tweaking it and adjusting it to your local playgroup, your meta, your local game store, the types of decks that you see on a regular basis, that is you starting to adopt a CEDH type mindset. You might not be going to a CDH tournament, but you are building around a local meta. We need to, if you are taking it to that CDH level, we need to adjust this mana base. We need to strip it down. It's not tight enough. We need to remove a lot of those basics, and then we need to add in some more cards, probably a few more Stax Pieces to slow your opponents down, potentially a bit more card draw to get through your deck a little bit quicker. I can't say for certain exactly which cards are playable in CDH, so I would recommend going to the CEDH database or following a few channels on YouTube which are more CEDH focused. You could take this deck back down the other way, but that would mean stripping out a lot of the game changers, also considering the amount of interaction that you are running in this deck. There's a lot of free interaction, so maybe adjust that and you could bring it down to a bit more of a fun level, maybe rely more on those clone type of effects to adjust to the power level of your opponents if you are bringing it down closer to the level 3 area. And yeah, that's it. It's up to you. It's all down to personal preference. And yeah, just take it from there. If you want to see some more decks that I have built, different deck techs, different power levels, I did a bracket 2 deck the other week, and I've got a few more up there as well. I'll put a playlist linked here, and you can go check out all those. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate your time as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye for now.